Welcome to Canon Family Stories, a limited series just this summer, 2026, designed to help us get to know members and friends of Canon UMC, hear their stories, how God has been at work in and through them, and the life of this church. Welcome to Blaine Ashburn. You are the guest of honor in our inaugural episode. Yes, you're the guinea pig, but you're also the fearless prototype.
Well, thank you, Tim. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is of my own doing because I shared a thought about this type of conversation and with Jan Dwyer, and she said, "Ooh, I'm going to take that to Tim," and then you kind of came to me and said, "I think I want to do that." So,
well, yeah, you are one half of the idea, as it turns out,
Okay.
because Miles had said something to me about doing a podcast like this, where we
Okay.
just really kind of hear people's stories.
Okay.
And so we had talked about that. That was kind of kicking around, and then it did seem kind of providential that you said that you really would like an opportunity to kind of share your story, with the congregation, and that just seemed like it was not a coincidence. That seemed like that seemed like a providential thing. Like, hey, let's bring these two ideas together.
If it isn't my strongest belief in my Christian faith, I don't know what would surpass it, but I truly believe God has a plan for each and every one of us, and some of what I'd like to share in this reflects that.
Well, that's great. And so let's kind of start with just kind of how you first got connected with Canon, kind of when that was, how that came about.
Yeah, I was in 1997. I had been going through, not just that year, but for a couple of years, very difficult marriage at that time, in plain English, falling apart.
Yeah.
I had not been a churchgoer to speak of for many years. And not to make an excuse out of it, but just to sort of set the table a little bit. My previous wife was Jewish. And so most of my faith journey, if that's the way or the phrase to use, was more in the synagogue. But she wasn't real strong. I mean, she was Reformed.
Yeah.
So other than holidays and things like that, I was at all the Seders for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had been married or coming up on. And it reached a point for me personally that with my marriage going south, I just needed to get back. And I had grown up in the United Methodist Church. Actually, ironically, and I often wonder how many folks know, I'm sure you do, but the United Methodist was a merge of two different, and my parents went to the other church that merged then with the Methodist Church and became the United Methodist Church.
Yeah, the Evangelical United Brethren Church.
EUB.
Right,
yes.
The United comes from them. It doesn't,
right, exactly.
Which
and
is
that's
not always known.
That's right. And I was hoping that might come up in conversation. That's where and then of course we stayed, my parents and me, of course, then we stayed through the merger with the United Methodist. So, in the hometown I grew up in, which you're familiar with, and maybe we'll talk about that.
Absolutely.
That's where I was. Well, then I went off to college and then became a college kid and just kind of went away from it all. Got married in 1979 and to my previous wife, who I've mentioned was Jewish. So I really wasn't part of the church. But in October of 1997, I was at a point where I just needed. I felt like I just felt compelled that I needed to get back into my own faith.
Yeah.
And so I lived close to here, very, very close to here at the time. Still married, but in a subdivision very close to here. And so I just started coming in here, and Pastor Terry Walton just got a hold of me,
Yeah.
and I couldn't wait for the next Sunday.
Okay, that's wonderful. Well, first of all, I just want to say, I mean, we've talked about your divorce a little bit before personally, but just to say again, I'm sorry for the pain that that you experienced there. I'm just saying, anyone who's been through divorce, there are a lot of members and friends at Canon who've been through that, and it's very difficult. And also, it really occurs to me, I've heard it said that the two things that most often bring kind of deep transformation into our life are great suffering or great love.
Yeah.
And how those kind of challenges, that kind of relational trauma can actually kind of open our hearts and our lives to God in a way that maybe we weren't open before. And so that's obviously a part of your story. I am kind of curious, when you came back to the Christian faith, the Christian church, having spent a couple decades, maybe not totally immersed, but still active in the life of a synagogue.
Right.
Did that kind of sojourn through the Jewish community, did that affect your understanding of the Christian faith, your experience of the Christian faith? And
Excuse me.
I'm just kind of curious how that affected things at all.
The way I would answer that is, in a weird way, I wouldn't say that what it did for me was it taught me a lot about the Torah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so, what is it, the first 5 books of the Bible, which in a weird way, I think kind of fed I mean, did it educate me any further in my Christian faith? No, I wouldn't say that. But what it did was it cemented a foundation that maybe I hadn't had before.
Yeah.
But I went through, as I say, a lot of visits and a lot of, I guess you could call it just exposure to, to the Jewish faith,
Right.
and their beliefs, and then relating them. I'll add to that. Actually, ironically, it definitely planted a seed of some kind that still exists for me, because. There's a couple of, on Sunday afternoons, on a couple of the streaming channels, there's a couple of the Jewish rabbis who are preaching about Jesus and the Christian faith.
Oh, okay.
And I find, if I'm channel surfing, waiting for a ball game to come on or something, or a race to come on, being a big NASCAR guy, I'll stop and watch. Okay. And I do. And
so they're Messianic Jewish rabbis?
Well, no, it's I'm trying to think of the one that I kind of catch most of the time when I do catch one. I think he calls himself the Christian rabbi or something like that. I mean, but he brings the two together very well. He's very articulate. Yeah. And I find that I guess it just interests me that was rooted all those years in my exposure, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but just being in that realm. Yeah. And so but the truth be told, I don't think I ever lost my complete connection to my Christian faith. I don't feel like it ever went away entirely. It's just, it kind of went to sleep for a lot of years. And it awakened big time when I came back in October of 1997 and started attending this church, Canon, on a regular basis. I couldn't wait for every Sunday. I was uplifted. But that's only a part of the story, which we'll get to here shortly.
Yeah, so I want to hear more about that. And before we do, I want to jump back. As you mentioned, you didn't grow up in Georgia or the South. Yeah. You are from the great state of Pennsylvania. Not only are you from the great state of Pennsylvania, but you're from the right third of Pennsylvania, which is to say western Pennsylvania.
Beaver County.
Beaver County, which is
Beaver High School,
near
Beaver
where
County.
I grew up. So tell us a little bit about, family, upbringing. Tell us a little bit about your story. Get to know you in that way, kind of.
Yeah,
where things got started.
I'm very proud of my roots in Western Pennsylvania, growing up in Western Pennsylvania and Beaver County. I even went. I don't know if some folks watching this may or may not be aware, but I'm a Nittany Lion, so we are.
Right.
And ironically, one of the first at Penn State, they've done away with them actually, but they had I think it was like 18 Commonwealth campuses across the state.
Oh yeah.
And they were two-year campuses,
Yeah.
and then you had to go to state college to finish to get your degree. So, grew up in Beaver, Pennsylvania, Beaver County, and then I spent my first 2 years of college at Penn State Beaver, which was the 2-year Commonwealth campus. And that meant living at home and commuting. And I was thanking God at that time that I had to go to state college for my last 2 years. I was ready.
You're ready to leave.
Ready.
Yeah.
But I still have my brother and sister-in-law. They actually, when my dad was in bad shape and everything, my brother bought the house we grew up in, and that's where he's living with my sister. Yeah, that's where he lives with my sister-in-law, and then I have a sister in town in Beaver proper, and she's been there. She won't leave ever. I mean, she doesn't even take trips.
What?
She
has
might.
everything
I think she's making one coming up with my wife actually, so that could be trouble. But yeah. So we lost our parents some years ago, and but my mother was strong in her faith. Yeah. Very strong.
So
not my dad so much. But
did
my
she
mom.
have deep roots in the EUB, the Evangelical United Brethren Church, or was that kind of something that came along later?
Well, my mother and father together when it was still EUB, yes, but when it merged with the Methodist Church, became the United Methodist Church. Yeah. I don't know, for some reason my dad sort of pushed away.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether it was, I was too young to know whether it was relation issues or whatever. Not so much with my mother, but just he either had a gang to run around with, men's group. Yeah. But my mom, she seemed to go the opposite direction, and she really became very rooted.
She got more engaged.
Oh, much. She never left.
Yeah.
She never left. I mean, she in the United Methodist Church in Beaver, she became very active.
So for those who don't know that history, the United Methodist Church was formed in 1969 through the merging of the Methodist Church with the Evangelical United Brethren Church. EUB, again, this is really more of a northern thing. I don't feel like in the South there were EUB churches. It was a German language church, German culture. Yeah. German immigrants who had formed this. They didn't have a direct connection with the Wesleyan revivals, but the kind of shape of their faith, the theology was very, very, very similar. It was like a German version of the same faith. Right. And it's interesting to hear about your dad because I've grown up where I did, like the bishop who ordained me came from an EUB background.
Oh, wow.
And I ran across EUB people periodically. Yeah. And there was, frequently a sense that the EUB, which was a pretty small denomination, just kind of got swallowed up by the Methodist Church. It did. And it's like it was institutionally necessary, but it was somewhat traumatic. Maybe it could have been handled in a different way.
The German heritage connection
it
connects also with the heritage in my family tree. Right. Because my mother's side had a lot of German roots and heritage going way back. Yeah. So, and that may have been some persuasion, but you mentioned the year of the merger, which was 1969. Yeah. That was when I graduated from high school. Yeah, I'm old. And so I had other things on my mind at that time. College is coming around the corner. I just applying to colleges and getting accepted. And so for me, it was okay, and I did stay going for a while those first 2 years at the Commonwealth campus. I continued to go to the church because I was interested in girls, and there were a lot of cute girls, and it was a lot of fun, actually. It was fun. But then like I say, once I went off to state college, and that was I was done. I shouldn't say done in the sense of deliberately
Right, but you just didn't.
My life,
you didn't engage a church when you were in college.
right? Well said. And that's kind of the way
that's not uncommon. So then so you finish up in Happy Valley. I have to call it Happy Valley.
Yep,
My dad graduated. My older sister graduated from Penn State.
Oh,
so,
is that right?
Yeah. So we're
learning
Penn
new
State,
things here
Penn
on
State
this.
family. We used to go to games when I was growing up.
Okay.
And so I've got some great memories of football games at
Oh
at
yeah,
Penn State.
me too.
Just
That
really,
can't be talked about on this podcast.
well, we had some good ones.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about kind of after college, kind of where life took you, and then how you ended up in Georgia in October '97.
Well, I'll make it a short version, but as many folks have quizzed me about in our congregation here, when I do scripture readings and whatnot, my bachelor's is in broadcast journalism, so I spent 10 years in radio news. Different radio stations, one in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where I was born. And I did a midday talk show. I interviewed a lot of people. But even before that, when I got to State College, I was the college station I was on, and I was the public affairs director. And I got sent off in 1972. I got sent off to the Shoreham Hotel in Washington, D.C., because that was the first year that 18-year-olds could vote in the presidential election.
Okay.
And I got sent off to the Shoreham Hotel for the Richard Nixon inaugural. And I interviewed people of national prominence.
Wow.
Bob Dole.
Really?
Yes, one-on-one.
Wow.
I during the campaign had interviewed John Connally before he was assassinated, or not assassinated, but shot with President Kennedy. After, of course, not before. But I interviewed a lot of prominent people. Matter of fact, one quick story which I've never forgotten. Jim Brown, by the way, was there, and I got to meet him. Us guys.
Wait.
The football player,
Jim Brown.
Yes.
Jim Brown.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was watching a speaker up at the podium, and there was a woman standing next to me, and she said, and I said, "Wow!" I said, "This guy's really, he's all into this and everything," and she said, "Yeah, he's pretty well committed." And I said, I don't know who he is, but I said, I don't recognize his face or anything. And she said, would you like to meet him? And I said, sure. Who is he? And she said, it's Richard Kleindienst. That's my husband. Now, a lot of folks in here will know who that was.
Okay.
A lot of the young generations won't, of course. But I spent a lot of years in radio, eventually kind of drifted off out of news. After several radio stations, I was, and I was a news director at a radio station, and it just wasn't working out. And so I was still in New Jersey, where I had gone for my first full-time radio job. Okay. And I changed careers, but I was still doing. I was DJing on the weekends at a radio station in a couple of places, and of course I was in New Jersey, and one of the radio stations that I was a country DJ at was in Florida, New York.
I don't think I've ever heard of Florida.
Nobody ever. And then I remember one time telling that to somebody, and they overheard me, and the person that I was telling it to goes, "Come on now, you're making that up." And the person who overheard the conversation said, "Oh yeah, it's for real."
Yeah.
So, but I moved out of that. I moved out of that business altogether, and a guy that I worked with at one of the radio stations in New Jersey, he said he owned a small side business where he did private parties, DJ, and so I did that for another 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I left the radio business altogether. But to answer your question about how we got down here, I had actually moved into insurance claims and claims adjusting for a company, and was a claims manager for a company. And the person that was my boss, moved on to another company and asked me if I would, and I was actually working in New York City for this insurance company. I worked in Lower Manhattan for 3.5 years, a brutal commute, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And he came to me and said, hey, how about running an office for me in Richmond, Virginia? Made an offer, sounded good, and so my previous wife and I, we moved to Virginia, and I was there about 3+ years, and he moved on and became president of another company.
Okay.
And said to me, I could use you. He said, you do a great job for me.
Okay.
How about coming back to where I'm at, or coming to where I'm at?
Yeah.
And I said, and where would that be? And he goes, well, that is I have an office in Norcross, Georgia. Would you be willing to move?
Yeah.
I said, again? I just, and my ex-wife wasn't she wasn't real fond of Virginia.
Okay.
She said, where's Norcross? I said, it's an Atlanta suburb.
Yeah.
She said, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. July 5th, 1992,
Okay.
I loaded up my old Pontiac J2000 with a rebuilt engine and drove down with everything I owned till we could sell the house in Virginia.
Wow.
And I came down here and lived in a motel for 3 weeks and running this office in Norcross. And then eventually by November, we sold the house in Virginia and been here ever since.
Yeah, that's like a big step of faith.
34 years coming up.
Yeah.
And I'll even mention something funny. I won't mention the specifics, although a couple folks in here know them, are aware of them, David Freeman being one of them. But when I got down here, and you can appreciate this, being a Yankee, took over this office of all females and one male, a marketing guy, and said to me, they came and came to me as a small group and said, we a little worried about Yankees coming in here. So they gave me their definition of Yankees twofold. I won't repeat it for especially being in the Lord's house. But they told me if I lasted 30, one of the things they told me is if I made it 30 years here, I could apply for Southern citizenship. I told that story to David Freeman one time. Yeah. And I'd already passed my 30 years. Right. And David goes, I now bestow upon you your Southern citizenship. Right. I still laugh every time I think of that.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know I was Yankee until I went to school in the South, and then some people pointed it out to me. As far as they were concerned, I was a Yankee.
Make sure you're aware of it.
And it wasn't just a Yankee; it was a something Yankee.
Yeah. Oh, so you had that same speech.
Had the same
you got that same speech.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So let's go forward then to kind of where we started, which was '97, and so you find your way to this church in a difficult place in life. Worship and Terry's preaching were really important to you. I know that there was also an experience with the prayer room here at the church. I don't know that a lot of people know we have a prayer room. It's
let me
below.
bridge.
So if you would share that experience,
let me bridge that for you. So I ultimately, well, first of all, and I got involved in other things here. I separated in 1998, my wife and I. I started coming, we had a singles group here at the time. And I started coming to the singles group. And for the life of me, I can't remember the associate pastor's name who was here at the time. Loved the guy. And he participated. He was single. And he participated. And several folks who are still part of our congregation here, they know who they are. They were in that group. And so I was, I was doing more than just coming on Sundays. So I was ultimately divorced in 1999. I'll just put it this way, Tim, that first of all, I had lost my job in the meantime. and I was working 3 part-time jobs just to make ends meet and to meet my calling it what it is, my court obligations, what was handed to me, which was extreme, to put it mildly.
Okay.
Extreme. And I was in really bad shape, financially, emotionally, and the prayer room that we still have in this church, although utilized for other things, as you know, now. I had never actually, and it kind of, your sermon this past Sunday, it's a pretty good connecting source in a way, because my renewed strength in God was not as deeply cemented as it probably at that time, right at that moment, as it is today. How did I get there? I came to the prayer room. I had obligations, child support, and other obligations that were handed to me by the court, paying rent, somewhere to live, eat once in a while. And I came in one day, middle of the day, church was open. I came in, went into the prayer room, and for the first time in my life, I did what is often preached, talked about.
Yeah.
I truly, I said, God, I'm leaving it in your hands. I'm fighting it now a little bit, as you can tell.
Yeah.
I left it in his hands.
Yeah.
I truly left it in his hands.
Yeah.
I had no job. I had a lot of resumes out.
Yeah.
I didn't know how I was going to meet my financial obligations. And for the first time in my life, I truly left it in God's hands. And I'd never really done that with sincerity before, as is often preached.
Right.
I got up from there and I prayed, and I got up from there and I walked out, and I can truthfully say, Tim, that I felt relief.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't walk out saying, oh, I know it's all good now, it's all fixed. I just felt relief.
Yeah.
I felt I had genuinely left it in God's hands, at his feet, for him to pull me through.
Yeah.
And that's why he had never failed me to that point. And with things that we don't have time to get into now, with me getting my kids every other weekend and things like that, I mean, I firmly believe in my heart that he wasn't going to let me, he was going to make sure my 2 kids had their dad.
Yeah.
But he never has failed me. And that is, in my heart, that is the thing that I would most communicate. I left there that day. 2 weeks later, I had a job offer.
Yeah.
Wasn't, which I took, because I needed to.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that a job that I kept for years and years. I mean, I continued to look for better opportunities and things, which ultimately I did. I reached a very, very, I've reached a good, I became, in fact, my associate professional degree from Georgia Tech is in safety and health program management. Risk management, loss control.
Okay.
And I really, and then spent the last 17 years of my corporate life in risk management and safety and health and loss control. Yeah. And which also, back to the thing I said about God really has a plan for us all. Yeah. After a few years of just kind of getting back on my feet and trying the dating world a little bit, which wasn't going real well, and all that kind of stuff, he put me in that last job that went 17 years of the last corporate 17 years. And one of the first persons I met didn't work at that company, was a subcontractor for the company. And, well, you know her. You know her.
Yeah, so that's how you met Julie.
That's how I met Julie.
That's how you met Julie.
Yeah, that's how I met Julie.
Wow.
And, it's funny. She and I, she was my fiance in February of 2004.
Okay.
And she was a little unsure about, well, she was unsure about me in the beginning, but that's neither here nor there. But at that point, she had already committed. In February 2004, she was like, well, okay, well, I guess I need to leave her church where she was, which was a big church.
Okay.
And for her, Cannon, believe it or not, was relatively small.
Okay.
And she's like, she was so nervous about that. Yeah. She really wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But in February 2004, we weren't married yet. We were engaged. And we became members, actual members.
Okay.
And Pastor Terry used to tease me. He said, "You will hold the record that shall never be broken of the longest visitor before ever becoming a member of this church." 7 years.
7 years.
Or just about.
Yeah.
So, and then, of course, she and I married at the end of May of 2004.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's when I say Canon members and friends. The friends piece for me is people like you for those 7 years, folks who are here, who are part of the life of the church, who haven't yet joined.
Yep.
But they're not members per se, but they are clearly friends of the church.
Regulars.
They're friends in the church. They're regulars. They're active.
Yeah.
So, something I want to go back to the prayer room, because your experience there resonates for me with something that I hadn't really been thinking about until recently, and that is the difference between commitment and surrender. And how, and I was reading something where the author pointed out that older generations of pastors talked about surrender and surrendering to God and surrendering to Jesus. And the trend lately has been to talk about commitment.
Yeah.
And we need to be committed. And of course we do.
Right.
But that's really an outgrowth out of surrendering. And surrendering doesn't mean we become passive and,
Right.
and we don't do anything, we just throw up our hands, we give up. No, it's just yielding to God's grace, yielding to God's love, really kind of letting go of control and then living in response to God's grace, which is, it sounds like that's what happened, because you were like, you didn't become a bystander in your life, you remained an active participant. It's just that you were more consciously, intentionally, really, you were living your life together with God and in response to God's, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that seemed like the key thing there was that God became intimate and central in your life in a way that perhaps he hadn't been prior to that.
And very much so, very much so. I mean, well, let me say two things about that. First of all, I never really liked it when ministers would use the word surrender.
Okay.
I got the gist of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't like it, the terminology.
Yeah.
That just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But yet I understood that what it meant, as I've said already, to really put it in his hands, lay it at his feet, and trust and obey. Yeah. Which is one of my favorite hymns.
Yeah. Okay.
And to trust God.
Yeah.
I have, Julie has given me little things that sit on one of my nightstands and stuff. Trust God with your whole heart and things. And that's what it was for me, as opposed to surrendering. But I understood again, giving it to God.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it, kind of in conjunction with what you're asking, is, for a long time, born again. A lot of that was really, the verbiage.
Right.
Born again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't object to that.
Right.
And maybe in a sense, that's what it was for me. I was born again. But I wasn't. I was maybe born again prior to my visit to the prayer room.
Yeah. Yeah.
By virtue of the fact that I felt a need to be in service every Sunday in church, to hear Terry and God's word and participate. And, so I think in a sense maybe that was when I became, quote unquote, born again.
Yeah.
But the difference being when I truly laid my troubles, laid my problems, gave them to God.
Yeah.
And it was a point in my life where I thank Him every day in prayer for the abundant blessings that He has given me every day, in many, many ways. And prior to you coming to Canon, I've narrated many, many holiday events. There was one that I did quite a few years ago that we actually spread over 3 days. And for the life of me, I'm right now can't think of the name of it, which I should.
Right. Was it part of Holy Week? Did they do it like?
It was, yeah. I mean, it was leading up to.
Okay.
It was leading up to maybe a couple of weeks before.
Oh, okay.
Christmas.
Okay.
It was forever.
Yeah.
I
But it was a
can't think of-
3-day. It was
yeah.
a 3-day.
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
We
thing.
did it 3 days.
Okay.
We had. It was packed in here, and I narrated it all. All the performances, and I felt like I do when you ask me to read Scripture.
Yeah.
I pray and I ask God to. He's given me a gift that I am able to use and give back for Him, because He's given me so much. That's how I view it when I read Scripture, and when I was doing those narrations over the holidays and other times. And you've asked me, you've had me, or asked me to do it, and it's every chance I have to give back, because He's given me so much, and I can really say, in all truthfulness, it began that desire began with that visit to the prayer room when I left all of my problems in His hands.
Yeah.
And I'm totally thankful for so many ways, bringing Julie into my life.
Yeah.
She's so strong in her faith, and when I go a little sideways from time to time, she reminds me. But I don't mind it.
Yeah, well, she's a blessing to many of us. Everybody who knows her would count her a blessing.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you mentioned your experience with reading, because I did want to kind of wrap up with that. You've already touched upon it, but many people will know you as the voice of the Christmas Story, because you have frequently...
Forever Gloria.
Okay, that's
what it was called.
Okay, so you have often read the Christmas Story for us on Christmas Eve. This past Lent, Holy Week, you led us. You really narrated the Passion Story, beginning in the upper room and then taking us through the crucifixion and burial of Jesus. And you've already kind of touched upon this, but as we wrap up, just kind of wanted to, anything else that you want to share in terms of what that experience is like for you spiritually, how it is part of your response to God, but I would assume that it's also part of how God works in you, is that you
and through
you
me.
receive, like others receive from God through you, but I would imagine you also receive from God through that. So I'm kind of curious what the other side of that is like, how that ministers to you.
No, absolutely. I mean, as I said, I mean, the response, because when I'm about to read whatever it might be, the response that I get back, I ask God if others, if it moves them, then you've moved me.
Right.
And I don't know if that's
the
way to answer what you're asking, but
sure.
I don't say this egotistically, but the number of people who come up to me afterwards, or even a week later or so, and say to me, "Wow, boy, you brought it out in me. And one gentleman in here who's became a member maybe a year or so ago, and I won't mention him by name, but I mean, he was in tears. He came to me. He said, "Oh my goodness!" After the Good Friday readings. So and others have, and that I thank God that you've used thank you for using the gift you've given me, and allowing me to use it for you and for others, and to bring out their emotions and and reinforce their strength in God, if that's the way to put it. It's funny too, because I would tell you all these years later, in my 70s, I still miss my days back in the radio business. I never wanted to leave it.
Yeah, right.
I really left it primarily at the pressure of my previous wife, because in that business, you kind of you can appreciate this. You really don't get much time off.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
the hours are
crazy.
A challenge. Yeah.
Crazy.
They're hard on,
I mean,
on
I'd go
life.
2 weeks without a day off, or if there was an urgent news matter that I had to cover, or whatever. And she wanted me. She preferred me to be in a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, weekends off, so we could start a family, and things like that. And I capitulated. I gave in. I didn't want to leave that business, but I did. And then I hung on doing as I mentioned, the radio, the DJ stuff on the weekends.
Right,
just
you found ways to use the gift.
Scratch the itch.
Yeah, you found ways.
And so but then eventually that was, it was just time to move into something more corporate.
Well, and then to kind of tie some things together as we wrap up, I think, one of the reasons that I appreciate having you read is that you bring your whole self to the reading, and you help us hear and experience the whole text. I think for many of us who grew up in predominantly white churches, the practice has been to read with reverence, which can sometimes be almost with a monotone.
Yeah.
And the reality is that the biblical text, there's a lot of thought there. There are many thoughts that we need to think, but there also are many things there are feelings to be felt.
Well,
there are things to see and things to hear, and it engages the whole person. And so having people like you and someone with your kind of gifts who will put their whole self into it and let us feel what we should be like. There's emotion in the text. We should hear that. The reading itself should convey the emotion in the text, the drama in the text. It was written to pull us in. And so I guess, again, your experience through the trauma and the pain of divorce was really kind of bringing your whole self into a full relationship with God, and then you've brought those gifts and those skills and your whole self into the reading when you do that. And that's not your only ministry, but that is a significant ministry that you have had and continue to have. And so,
well, you've said it.
You're
very welcome. You've said it to me yourself, as have others.
Yeah.
After I've read, and whatever it might be, and they said, you read it as if it's a story, and I go,
yeah,
it is.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
And I've said, and it is.
Right.
And I read it as a story because it is.
It is.
Whether it be the Old Testament or the New Testament.
Right.
It is. It's a story, and it's written by multiple authors.
Right.
And so that's how I view it.
Engaging our minds, our emotions, all of our senses.
And that's what I try to convey when I read.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Blaine, for being our first guest on Canon Family Stories.
I'm very flattered and honored. Thank you.
I'm glad that your desire and the conversation you had with Jan and the one that Miles initiated with me, that those all kind of came together.
I don't know that I really expected it was going to go that route, but it did.
Yeah, but thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and and again, I hope others who watch would take time to watch, maybe gain from it as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Thanks, Tim.